You've watched these movies, you've sung the songs, bought the merch, cried at the end credits. But here's the question nobody ever stops to ask. What if you actually lived there? Not as the hero, not as the plucky sidekick with perfect comedic timing. Just as a regular person, a farmer, a fisherman. Let me tell you something, animated worlds are brutal. Beneath the stunning visuals, the catchy soundtracks, and the heartwarming lessons about friendship, these worlds are filled with ancient monsters, political conspiracies, literal gods of death, reality-warping magic, and ecosystems that will consume you without a second thought. Today, we are ranking the most dangerous worlds in animation. Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, nobody gets a pass. We're going from uncomfortably risky all the way to you would not last a Tuesday. Let's establish the rules. Because dangerous means different things in different worlds, we're judging each realm on 5 key factors. 1. Survival rate for ordinary inhabitants, not the hero, you, a nobody. The higher a world scores across these categories, the more dangerous, and the higher it ranks. Let's start at the bottom and work our way to the terrifying top. Number 10, the Kingdom of Corona, Tangled Disney. Okay, hear me out before you close the tab. On the surface, Corona looks like your dream vacation. Beautiful kingdom, kind citizens, legendary lantern festival. But peel back that golden aesthetic, and you start to notice some cracks. First, the kingdom is surrounded by wild, lawless frontier. The Snuggly Duckling pub alone is full of ex-criminals and thugs who make their living doing things polite society doesn't ask about. The forest between the kingdom and the outside world is essentially unpoliced wilderness. Bandits, criminals, mercenaries like the Stabbington brothers operate openly and without consequence. Second, the royal family is so consumed by protecting one person that the entire kingdom's political structure bends around a single secret. That kind of systemic obsession with one royal child tells you something about how well the average citizen is actually protected. Spoiler, it's not great. Third, and this one's wild, a literal witch has been harvesting a magic flower for hundreds of years, and nobody noticed. She lived in those hills, invisibly using supernatural resources, for centuries. That's how little oversight existed in this kingdom. Could you survive here? Probably, if you stayed in the city and didn't wander into the forest. But the moment you leave those gates, you are absolutely on your own. Danger rating, 3 out of 10, survivable, but the kingdom's peaceful reputation hides some genuinely sketchy infrastructure. Number 9, the Shrek universe, far, far away DreamWorks. Here's a world that gets wildly underestimated in danger discussions, and I think that's because Shrek is funny. We laugh at the talking donkey and forget that the opening scene of this movie is the government systematically arresting and relocating fairy tale creatures against their will. That's not a quirky backstory, that is a civil rights crisis. Far, far away and its surrounding territories are governed by lords and monarchs with absolute power. Lord Farquaad has men dragging terrified creatures from their homes in the dead of night. There is no appeal process. There is no due process. You are a magical being, so you lose your home. But beyond the political horrors, let's talk about the physical landscape. Shrek's swamp exists on the edge of a forest that contains witches, dragons, and creatures straight out of medieval nightmare fuel. The fairy godmother runs what is essentially a magical crime family. She controls enchantments, emotions, and political outcomes from behind a corporate veneer. Rumpelstiltskin in the later films literally rewrites reality on a whim, unmakes entire timelines, and builds his power on desperate wishes with catastrophic fine print. The world of Shrek contains an active dragon with a temper, multiple witches, corrupt monarchies, enchanted forests, cursed individuals, and at least one sequence where an entire city is nearly destroyed. The ecosystem of Far, Far Away is essentially every fairy tale danger compressed into one geography. If you are an ordinary, non-magical human in this world, you have no protection. You are subject to the whims of whoever holds the crown that week, and that person changes with alarming frequency. Danger rating, 5 out of 10. Funny on the surface, deeply, politically unstable underneath. Number 8, the Pride Lands, the Lion King, Disney. The circle of life sounds beautiful until you realize it means something eats you. The Pride Lands are governed by a monarchy with zero democratic accountability. When the king dies, and in this world, kings get murdered, there is no succession plan, no council, no system of governance. The entire ecosystem literally collapses. Crops fail, herds disappear. The land itself dies because one lion made bad decisions. That is a terrifyingly fragile system. And let's talk about the Elephant Graveyard, a region bordering the Pride Lands that is essentially a dead zone filled with hyenas who are so desperate and starving that social order has completely broken down. This isn't a hidden danger on the far edges of the map. The cubs knew about it. Children know about it. It is geographically adjacent to where the royal family lives and is considered a known hazard by the entire population. The Pride Lands also suffer from catastrophic droughts, wildfires, and famine as recurring natural events, not rare disasters, but expected patterns. The Pride Lands under Scar become a dust bowl within what appears to be just a few years. Entire species migrate away. Those who stay face starvation, and those who would resist, They face an army of hyenas enforcing a tyranny. And here's the kicker, there's no warning system, no emergency protocol, no governmental redundancy. When a hyena army shows up, your best hope is that the ghost of your dead father appears in the clouds with some actionable advice. For a zebra or a warthog or a meerkat just trying to live their life, this world is utterly merciless. Danger rating, 5.5 out of 10. Ancient, beautiful, and utterly at the mercy of whoever sits on Pride Rock. Number 7. Zootopia. Zootopia Disney. And here is where things get genuinely sinister. Zootopia presents itself as a utopia. It literally has the word utopia in its name. It's a city where predator and prey live together in harmony, where anyone can be anything, where the architecture is gorgeous and the infrastructure is impressive and everything seems to work. And then you discover that the government is deliberately turning predator citizens savage using a biological weapon. Not metaphorically, not as a social commentary you have to squint to see. The assistant mayor of Zootopia is literally using a targeted biological agent administered via poisoned flowers distributed across the city to trigger violent regressions in specific mammals and justify a political agenda of fear and segregation. Think about what we're talking about for the average citizen of this city. You are living in a metropolis of millions. You go to work, ride the tram, grab coffee, and your government, the institution that is supposed to protect you, is actively engineering violence to consolidate power. And the conspiracy goes deep. It involves the mayor's office, the police department, organized crime networks, and a citywide pharmaceutical distribution system. This isn't a rogue agent acting alone. This is a systemic rot that has infected every level of civil society. There's also the quiet undercurrent of speciesism, a form of prejudice built so deeply into Zootopia's social fabric that even the protagonist, a genuinely good-hearted person, unconsciously perpetuates it. The bias is everywhere. It shapes hiring decisions, housing access, career ceilings, and social mobility. Entire species are expected to conform to historical stereotypes, and those who challenge those expectations are treated as anomalies. Zootopia is a city where the danger isn't a monster in the forest. The danger is the system itself, and you cannot fight the system with a sword or a shield. You can only hope someone in a position of power decides to care. Danger rating, 7 out of 10. A high-functioning society built on a foundation of biological warfare and systemic prejudice. Beautiful exterior, rotten, conspiratorial core. Number 6. The Sea Witch's Domain. The Little Mermaid Disney. Most people think of The Little Mermaid as a romantic fairy tale, and they are conveniently forgetting about the garden of mutated, imprisoned souls that Ursula keeps as front yard decoration. Let's be very clear about what Ursula is and what she does. She is a powerful sorceress banished from the royal court, but still operating with complete impunity in the deep ocean, who specifically targets desperate merpeople at their most vulnerable moments and offers them deals. Deals that are deliberately designed to fail. Contracts written in magical fine print that ensures almost no one can ever meet the terms. And when they fail, she collects the debtor's soul and transforms them into a shriveled sea polyp for her garden. She has been doing this for a long time. Her garden is not small. It is a monument to manufactured desperation. The broader ocean in this universe is also not exactly welcoming. Sharks operate as apex predators with no restraint. Humans hunt and capture sea creatures regularly. The political structure of the undersea kingdom is a monarchy where the king makes emotional, reactive decisions that consistently put his subjects at risk, and his subjects have no mechanism to hold him accountable. For an average merfolk citizen, you are living in a world where making one desperate wish can cost you your soul permanently, and where the only safeguard against that possibility is a king who rules by emotion and an ocean that has never particularly cared about your survival. Danger rating, 7.5 out of 10. Gorgeous bioluminescent vistas, concealing genuine institutional supernatural horror. Number 5. The Spirit World and Monster World, Monsters Incorporated and Onward Pixar. Now we enter Pixar territory, and Pixar does not play around when it comes to building worlds with genuine existential stakes. Monsters Incorporated presents what looks like a corporate comedy. Funny monsters, adorable small child, bureaucratic jokes, a chase through a warehouse. But strip that away and you are looking at a civilization built entirely on the harvested terror of children. The entire energy infrastructure of the monster world, the power that lights cities, runs transportation, heats homes, runs on screams. This means there is a massive, institutionally sanctioned apparatus dedicated to traumatizing children, and the monsters doing it are considered essential workers. They are celebrated. There are performance rankings and leaderboards and company-wide recognition for who terrified the most kids this quarter. When that system is threatened, when a child crosses over, the government response is immediate and authoritarian. The Child Detection Agency, or CDA, operates with extraordinary speed and zero due diligence. A single child stuffed animal in the wrong location triggers a full hazmat response. Individual monsters can be instantly terminated, their entire identity erased, for proximity to the contamination. Due process does not appear to exist. In Onward's world, the danger is more diffuse, but equally existential. Magic has been dying for generations, replaced by technology, because magic was hard and technology was easy. The world has forgotten the knowledge needed to sustain its deepest power. The quest at the heart of the film succeeds only partially, and the world is left still largely depleted, populated by mythological creatures who have forgotten what they once were. Both these Pixar worlds are haunted by the same ghost: institutions built on exploitation, civilizations running on borrowed time, and individuals powerless against the scale of a system in slow collapse. Danger rating: 7.5 out of 10. Playful, colorful aesthetics masking deep structural horror. Number 4. The Underworld. Hercules Disney. We need to talk about a world that is, by definition, the place everyone goes when they die, and somehow still manages to get dramatically worse from there. The Underworld, in Disney's Hercules, is not a metaphor. It is a literal geographic location, accessible from the mortal world, governed by a god with a political agenda, a volcanic temper, and absolutely no ethical constraints on how he chooses to exercise his power. Hades rules the underworld not as a distant administrator, but as an active, scheming, deeply unhinged despot who genuinely enjoys the work. He has minions, Pain and Panic, who operate as operatives and spies in the mortal world above. He has the Fates as informants, cutting deals for glimpses of the future. He controls the Titans' primordial beings of such catastrophic, elemental power that they can capture Olympus itself and imprison the gods. And here is what makes this world uniquely, cosmically terrifying: dying doesn't save you. In the Hercules universe, death just means you relocate to Hades' domain, where you exist as a soul entirely at the mercy of whatever mood the god of the dead is in that particular eon. He can use your soul as leverage. He can threaten to return you to suffering. He literally negotiated with Hercules using Meg's soul as a bargaining chip in a contract dispute. Death is not an escape in this world. It is a change of address, and your new landlord is an actively malevolent god with impulse control issues. The mortal world above isn't safer. Monsters roam the landscape freely. The Hydra regenerates faster than it can be killed. The Cyclops levels an entire city. The Minotaur operates without restraint. Without Hercules, those threats have no counter, and with him, there's no guarantee he arrives in time. And then there are the Titans, forces of nature, so ancient and destructive that they predate civilization, that were sealed away only because the gods themselves united against them, and that came back anyway. The Hercules world is a place where divine power struggles use mortal lives as collateral, where death doesn't protect you, and where the fundamental forces of the cosmos are in constant, violent negotiation. Danger rating: 8 out of 10. Dying is not an escape. It is merely an entrance to something considerably worse. Number 3. The Archipelago. How to Train Your Dragon. DreamWorks. We've arrived in the top 3. And if you thought the underworld was rough, welcome to a world where your entire civilization has been at war constantly, perpetually, without pause, for 300 years. The archipelago of How to Train Your Dragon is one of the most genuinely lethal environments in all of animated cinema. And it gets systematically underestimated because we spend most of the films with the cool dragons, and dragons are cool enough to make us forget about the context. But let's look at this world from ground level. Really ground level. You are a Viking. You live in a village of maybe a few hundred people on a rocky, windswept island in what is essentially the frozen North Atlantic. Your village is built from timber. You have no fireproofing technology, no reliable warning systems, no air defense. Half the village has visible scars. Children are trained to fight dragons almost from the moment they can walk, because childhood in the archipelago means learning to survive before you learn anything else. But then you learn the truth, and the truth makes everything worse. The dragons aren't acting autonomously. 300 years of war, and it was never even a war. It was just everyone caught in the gravitational pull of a monster they didn't know existed. And then subsequent films reveal the Red Death was just one layer of the threat. Drago Bloodfist, a warlord so brutal that the chiefs of the entire known world refused to negotiate with him, has conquered and weaponized entire dragon armies. There are dragon hunters actively capturing the ecosystem for profit. There is a hidden world that, once discovered, changes the political calculus of the entire human-dragon relationship. The archipelago is a world of constant physical danger, extreme environmental hostility, institutionalized warfare, and apex predators of such scale that individual survival is largely a matter of luck and timing. Danger rating: 8.5 out of 10. 300 years of war, and that was before they found out about the bigger monsters. Number 2. The Dark Forest and Death's Domain. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. DreamWorks. This is the one. This is the world that genuinely haunts me. In Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, the Dark Forest presents itself as a destination, a magical place where a wishing star has fallen and granted the power to rewrite reality. It sounds like a classic fairy tale quest, a treasure hunt with high stakes and a big reward. The Wolf Death himself, personified, is pursuing Puss in Boots, not out of malice, not out of cruelty, not as a villain executing a scheme. He is pursuing him out of cosmic inevitability. Puss has burned through 8 of his 9 lives through recklessness and arrogance, and a complete refusal to acknowledge his own mortality. He has 1 life remaining, and death has come, patiently and professionally, to collect it. What makes this world uniquely, existentially terrifying is the nature of the threat. Death is not a monster you can defeat with a sword. He is not a villain with a plan you can disrupt. He does not want power or treasure or revenge. He cannot be reasoned with, bribed, outrun, or tricked. He is not cruel. He is inevitable. And when he smiles at you from the shadows of that forest, with those burning red eyes and that eerie whistled tune, he is not threatening you. This is a world where death walks openly, where magic corrupts as often as it saves, where narrative itself is unstable, and where the only path through is not victory, it's acceptance. Puss in Boots survives not because he defeats death. He survives because he stops running from mortality and chooses to live his remaining life with intention rather than desperation. A world where the only way to survive is to make peace with not surviving. That is built on the architecture of existential despair, and that is a truly extraordinary kind of dangerous. Danger rating, 9.5 out of 10. A world where death itself is the final boss, and the only winning move is to stop trying to win. Number 1. The Elemental Extremes. Elemental Pixar, Atlantis, Disney. Now we need to talk about a category of animated world that never gets sufficient credit for how catastrophically, structurally lethal it is. The Elemental Extreme. These are worlds where the fundamental forces of nature, fire, water, earth, air, have become anthropomorphized, politicized, weaponized, and densely packed into civilizations that were never designed to safely contain them, where those forces aren't just environmental features. They are citizens with rights, grudges, histories of trauma, and the involuntary capacity to cause mass casualties on a bad emotional day. In Pixar's Elemental, Element City is a pressure cooker of environmental inequality and literal combustion events. Fire elements physically cannot touch water elements without catastrophic results. This isn't intolerance as metaphor, it is intolerance as physics. When Ember loses her temper, something any person might do on a difficult Tuesday, she doesn't break a mug. She ignites a building. She blows a hole in infrastructure. Her suppressed emotions are presented as a personal struggle, but from a city planning perspective, they represent a recurring municipal disaster. In Atlantis, the Lost Empire, the danger is civilizational and 10,000 years old. An entire nation has survived barely on the power of a crystal that nobody fully understands anymore. Where the deep water contains creatures that dwarf everything humanity has ever constructed, operating on timelines and spatial scales utterly indifferent to individual human survival. Where bioluminescent beauty exists in the same space as apex predators that have no concept of mercy, because mercy is not a concept that evolved in the deep ocean. In the Elemental Extreme, you can do everything right. You can be kind, brave, smart, and prepared. And the world will still casually, structurally, environmentally challenge your survival every single day. Not because it wants to, but because it is simply that large, and you are simply that small. These heroes aren't brave because they're fearless. They're brave because the world terrifies them, and they act anyway. So here's my question. Which world would you live in as an ordinary person? Drop your answer below. Defend your choice. I'll be judging your survival instincts.